Falling in love with our videos is just a click away. Welcome to the Lover List, your daily dose of love, dating, and relationship stories from the Reddit community. Don't be left heartbroken. Like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications. What's the worst thing a person has said to you while on a date? I can tell you are an only child because you have major personality flaws. I have major personality flaws and I'm one of 5 children, so I don't mind that you're, waves hand vaguely at my body. I don't mind that you're corporeal. Wistfully after 2 wines. God, you are so amazing. Such a shame you look like that. I'm so sorry, but this line would be hilarious in a comedy like Fleabag. Haha, she called me the next day to apologize and said she really liked getting to know me and would I be up for hanging out just on a friendly basis? Despite her brain fart, she actually seemed like a really nice, caring person and she came across as genuinely sorry for not just her words, but the fact she actually thought that. So, knowing she was just a bit shallow, I said sure, can always use more friends, right? Nobody's perfect. We hung out again a few weeks later. In talking, she seemed like she might actually be into me, touching my arm and flirting a bit. So I mentioned that while I thought she was nice and very pretty, she was a bit too shallow for me to really be interested romantically. She looked really sad and said she knew she was shallow, hated it, and was trying really hard to work on it. I felt bad for her, but also not keen to end up wondering all the time if you're a Captain Uggo to your partner. So anyways, we got to know each other properly over a few months, became great friends over a couple of years and we both ended up in relationships with other people. She moved abroad later to be with her family and had a really messy breakup with her fella who moved with her. He cheated on her in just the worst way possible, for very shallow reasons. I traveled a lot for work, and my relationship also ended just due to us outgrowing each other. About a year after she moved away, I got a short gig working in the country she was living in. She came to meet me at the airport, super excited to show me all around her city. We had an amazing day together, caught up like no time had passed since we last saw each other. We went out for a lovely meal. She insisted on paying. I walked her home afterwards, then I kissed her goodnight in the snow. 10 years later, we are still together. Wow, my boyfriend would love this place. Edit. This was about 25 years ago. I'm very happily married, obviously to a different woman, and things are awesome. But to all you folks getting stuck with bad dates, I see you and I wish you the best. In a similar vein, after spending the night doing all sorts of things, she invited me up to her apartment and said we just have to be careful not to wake my boyfriend. She wasn't talking about messing around. I did call her on it. We'd been out on several dates and she had never mentioned him. She said, "Oh, I thought you knew." Asked me the worst crime I'd commit if I would get away with it. I said steal a few million from a bank. They said they'd Dahmer someone. A lot of people think my brother is gay, but he's not. I know. I've seen his penis a few times, and he's not gay. His penis doesn't look gay. I mean, he got hard. I paraphrased. The girl saying it was 18 and her brother was 25-ish. Mega religious family. We had a fun night having a personal date and then we pull up to his house for his birthday party, where I'm about to meet his family for the first time. He turns to me and says, "Oh, by the way, my parents don't like Mexicans." Damn WTFFFF. Why even put someone in that situation then, right? I was like, "What do you want me to do with that information?" He was like, "Just be yourself." I was like, "No shit. I can't be anyone else." It was wild. They were polite but patronizing AF. Needless to say, that ended quick. First date from a dating app. I could tell he was maybe a touch too desperate based on the texts we exchanged. However, he was also whip smart and almost finished with grad school, so I still agreed to go out. We didn't have a spark, which I noticed immediately. On the other hand, he was oblivious to it. No big deal. Then, he suggests a walk after dinner. I agree like an idiot. On that walk he proceeds to tell me that his ex-girlfriend cheated on him, that he thinks he'll always love her, even though she cheated on him with his best friend, and she gave him an STD. And the worst thing I ever heard on a date was, "But don't worry, it's one of the ones that clears up on its own." Nope. So, aren't you going to invite me to your place? I bought you lunch. You kind of owe me, from a guy I met once and had breath so bad I am surprised it didn't melt the fork. I got the same, except he was already at my place, shoes off, chilling on the couch watching a movie. Literally said, "So I've paid for dinner twice, when am I going to get something out of it?" I calmly got up, picked up his shoes, opened the front door, chucked them out into the courtyard as far as I could, and said, "Get out," while he stared at me in disbelief. Also, not that it matters, but I offered to pay my own bill both times. You know that cancer is a hoax perpetuated by Big Pharma and the government preying on the uneducated, right? He says to me, a cancer survivor whose life was derailed by cancer. It wasn't so much what he said to me as much as the fact he tried to trade me to someone for cocaine. That person then looked me up and down and said, "Nah, but I'll take her for a bump of meth." My date considered it. I got out of there. I was just like, nope, don't call me, and I backed out of the restaurant because I didn't want to turn my back on either of them. Not exactly a date, but at a dance when I was a teenager I sat down for a breather after I'd been dancing for a long time. Right then a slow song started and a couple girls came up. One of them introduced me to her friend and asked me to dance with her because nobody had asked her to dance yet. I felt really bad for her and said, "Heck yeah, everybody deserves to dance." She spent the whole time talking about how I'm such a piece of garbage for sitting down when there are girls like her who haven't been asked to dance. I kept trying to change the subject. She just ignored me and kept trash talking me, so I walked away mid-dance. You don't want any more kids? Don't worry. I'll change your mind and you'll enjoy carrying my child. There was no second date and I ended up having to block him everywhere. What kind of response do people expect from saying that shit? Wow, how charming. My panties just dropped so hard they left a crater. Excuse me while I go mop my soaking It wasn't what was said, but what was not said, because her face was buried in her phone screen the whole evening. She was shocked when I told her that we would not be going out again. I learned that lesson very early on in my dating career. First real date I went on summer after high school. My date was on her phone for probably a good 30% of a 2-hour date. I went out with her 2 more times, and it was the same story. After that, I pretty much had a firm policy that if my date spends a significant amount of time on her phone, I move on. It's also why I started doing coffee for first dates. If you can't hold a conversation with your date for an hour, it's not going to work out. Her phone rang. She answered it. I expected it was a friend calling to see if she wanted to be saved. She got concerned and hung up and said that was my ex. He got arrested. "Can you bring me to the police station?" So I did. I even helped them fill out some paperwork so he could get released. I took them to his car and she looked at me. I laughed and said the date was over hours ago. Go, and she got out and they drove away. It was all going really well until she saw a group of people with various disabilities when we were going for a walk and proceeded to tell me how, while she had nothing against the disabled, they made her physically ill because of how messed up they are, and she wished there were limits on how much they could be out in public. I told her, as a person with an invisible disability of my own, that she made my skin crawl and that she should be limited on how much she can be in public. There was obviously no second date. After ordering a really expensive meal and drink, after I had offered to buy dinner, plate, $50, drink, $25. Like, holy shit. I will admit I went with it until, "I want to date someone like you but not you. I was going to tell you earlier but I was hungry." Then she went and made plans with another dude for after our meal. I went to the bathroom and then snuck out when our food was brought. I didn't know how she paid for that because I ordered something equally as expensive. I know you can't force attraction, but I blocked her as I left. You deserve better, Hotman. I was in recovery from my eating disorder. The dude came over to watch a movie and eat pizza. This was our second or third date. We were talking about fitness and he grabbed my bare thigh and jiggled it while asking how I could say I worked out. Other highlights include him drinking too much to drive home after assuming this was a hookup and then calling me a Puritan for making him sleep on my floor. He also wanted me to pay for the $300 parking ticket he received. We didn't have another date. This girl asked me out. I wasn't even too interested in her, but since it's so rare for a girl to ask a guy out, I figured I'll give her a chance and go on a date with her. We made plans to eat at a specific restaurant at 7 p.m. I get there on time and I text her to let her know I'm there. Around 20 minutes later, she texts me back apologizing and saying that she fell asleep but that she is on her way and she'll be there in 20 minutes. I waited around 20 minutes, go to a random Petco nearby to look at the animals and kill time. She hasn't texted me, so I wait around 20 more minutes. At that point, I decide to text her to see how she's doing, but the message doesn't go through and I found out she blocked me. I told him I would like to just pay for myself and he pay for himself so I don't feel uncomfortable ordering what I want. Fine. He dislikes every option we had to eat out except the one place I don't like. Whatever, I'll deal with it. We go, he orders seafood and several cups of wine. The check comes eventually and he stares at it and says, "So you're paying?" I didn't bring my wallet. I was instantly pissed off. On the way back to his house, I parked my car there and then we carpooled together to the restaurant. He stops at Arby's and asks if I want anything and I said no, then proceeds to bust out his FKN wallet and pay for his meal. He did. Then he blew up my phone when I didn't want to go on another date and didn't respond back with, "Well, it's your loss." Edit, I'd like to change my answer. It was 10 years ago. I was extremely drunk and me and this date I had were playing a drinking game in a group of my friends and roommate. He said, "Never have I ever molested my sister," then took a drink. My roommate physically threw him out of our apartment and I passed out on my couch. I don't think I can get it up, but would you mind coming home with me anyway? Decades ago, a guy showed up for our date with a black eye and some bruises. He was usually pretty hot, but for obvious reasons he was very much not hot that night. Turned out he'd taken a bad tackle in rugby that afternoon. I offered to rain check our date, but he said no. Anyway, by mid-meal he was slurring and seemed like he was going to fall asleep. The entire restaurant was looking at him. I asked repeatedly if he'd like to leave and he kept shaking it off and trying to rally for a little bit longer. He kept starting random new conversational threads with me, like he couldn't follow the conversation we already had on the go. His laughs were delayed even if he made the joke. Anyway, he asked me to take his wallet and pay the bill, which I did, and when I gave his wallet back he hit me with that stellar line. I took him home with me because I thought he'd been pre-gaming and was too drunk to drive himself. Fortunately, my roommate was home. She said he probably had a concussion and I had to wake him every 20 minutes for water and to check his speech. I want you try to get me pregnant tonight. No, this isn't some cute way to come on to me or tell me she was down to clown later. This was followed by about 10 minutes of her telling me I'd have no parental obligations, how she felt she was running out of time, persuading me why she was in a good position to take care of a kid on her own, why she wanted to randomly do it via one-night stand instead of other means. You paying for dinner is way cheaper than IVF. We had been having a great date up to that point too. I thought she was kidding, but she insisted she was serious. It bummed me out. She was smart, had a good job, very attractive. I could not understand why she was going about having a kid this way when she would make someone so happy. Oh, by the way, if I wanted to be around she was okay with that too. I just didn't have to be if I didn't want to. Spent 90 minutes with one woman. She talked the entire time. Anytime I would try to say something she would interrupt me, then had the nerve to say you don't talk much. When I tried to respond to that, she interrupted me again. Said on her profile she smoked on occasion, had 6 maybe more cigarettes in the 90 minutes and basically told me her entire life story including why she can't have sex or have children. Finally someone messaged her and she had to leave, dropping her off, and she says, "You're not calling me again, are you?" I didn't want to lie, but I said no, I will, deleted her number and blocked her. Another episode of relationship stories that are truly worth telling, and you got to be a part of it. If you enjoyed hearing these tales, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on notifications too so you never miss an episode filled with tales that'll warm your heart.